Derek here. This is our CNC machine is running. It's just finishing a cut. One of the issues that we do have with this machine is we do get a lot of we run a lot of parts, and we're working on a few things to keep the sawdust up. And right now we're trying some stuff out. It's just finishing up here. When it's done, I'll show you as it's offloading. So while it's finishing up here, this piece on the end, this black piece right here on the end, is between the machine. That's between the table and the conveyor belt. It just turned on. Went over and it's pulled a new sheet of material. It's grabbed a new sheet of material and it's pushing all the parts off. Any sawdust that's between the parts on there that's left drops down into that piece there, and then that sweep comes down and vacuums the table. It's now it comes in and pushes the part into the final location on the table and turns the vacuum on and starts the next sequence. So now we're at the end of the conveyor here, and the parts are on it and have been unloaded, and all we do is we push the button. See, I think we push it twice, and I don't actually run this very much, and so I can't tell you, but on the end of it here is an additional dust collector. It's got the light beam on here, and so when the parts come down to this location, it stops. As we pull these off, I'll just set these aside and push them back. The conveyor comes back on until it hits that light again and stops it. Down below, it's got a dust collection port on it, and this one's activated. Right now we actually have it disconnected. It's activated by a little ram, and so when it's on and turning, it opens and closes. We've left it disconnected because we're having a little issue with it where it flips and it gets backwards. And so we found that everything just falls in there and it sucks it just fine without actually opening it up. It's got a little bit of blow-by on it. So, and that's a nice steel table. The conveyor belt's a nice heavy-duty belt, and it's all set up nicely, all hooked up nicely to keep everything up off the floor. We've added, support cards to keep things off of it. Okay, so this is the other end of the machine. This is the loading side, and this is the lift that comes with it. The lift is actually overbuilt for what we need it for. It's like a 10,000 pound lift, and that was the issue I was telling you about. It's about 17 inches tall, which with the machine in its standard setup only allows us for 27 sheets of material on there. And they normally come like a big unit of weight, and for us comes in at 35 or 40 sheets, so we have to back unload them off of there. Is what we're actually going to do is we're going to cut a hole in the ground and lower this down 13 inches, and that'll allow us to put everything on there. But so you load your material on it, and on the back side over here, it's got a couple of lights, and it sets the height of the material to a proper height. And then these two aligners come down and grab the material and pull it up against this post in the back to prepare it to be loaded on the machine. So that's how that works. This is the operation cabinet of the machine. One of the things they've done, some of it I like, some of it I don't like, but before on our previous machine, all of these buttons right in here were all mechanical buttons down here on the board. And so these ones here, this stop, reset, clear, were ones that you'd push regularly. When I first started using it, I didn't really like it because it seemed a little bit more cumbersome to use the mouse than to push it on the thing. But the nice thing about that now is that it can be run when you have a guy come in, when you're doing remote work, he can operate just about everything on the machine remotely. Before, he'd be having to tell you, do this, do that, and it'd take a while sometimes, but now anything he needs to do to operate the machine, except for pushing the reset button. There's two of them on the machine. The reset button over here, when you walk in, it's got a light shield. You have to re-push that and then come push this button twice to clear that out. They can do everything on there. So it's just some of it's just a little bit of, hey, getting used to it, a little bit different than the way we did it. Other thing on this machine is it's a dual gantry machine, and so it's got a rack and pinion on each side of the machine that it runs back and forth on. This machine has a motor for that axis, for the X-axis on both sides of the machine. Some machines will just have a single motor on the back side and then another rack and pinion over here that's non-powered just for it to ride along on. Supposedly that, it's better to have the two motors. That's, a little bit more in price. A cheaper one will only have one motor with that. This is our tool changer in here, and it's a 12 position one. It's a fixed one. The machine comes over and picks it up and it rotates on here, but it's very sturdy and it's out of the way. It's a good ways out of the way from the table. Some of the other machines will put it up in between underneath the gantry there, and the tools are right down in the working area, just a couple inches off of your Z-axis, and so that reduces the amount of clearance that you've got. This one's a big heavy duty one, and it's got good forks on it. The other thing in the machine, where the machine's at right now, I can't show it to you, but it's got a tool touch-off pad. And what that allows us to do is we put the router bits into the tool holder right here. We put them in, and we just have a certain measurement that we have to stay close to. When we put it in the machine, it goes over and touches off of that tool pad. That thing is huge. If your machine doesn't have that, the amount of time that you spend adjusting the height of the router bit is greatly increased. So our last machine didn't have that. We'd put it in, even though we actually had a spacer on it that would put that tool back in the same spot every time. Just the difference in machining and the bit, we would have to run a tool test on it and verify the depth about 3 times. And so this saved us several minutes on a tool change by having the automatic touch off. We just put it in, it goes over, and the bit comes down onto a pad, and when it touches it, it automatically measures the length of the bit. And that's out for the router bits. The drill bits you still have to do manually, but all the router bits. And this one has an extra wide pad. You saw the fly cutter that we used to surface it. It's about a 4-inch wide fly cutter. Not all of them have that wide of a pad.